The new season for the Bazaar is just around the corner, and it's time for card reveals. Before I get into it, a quick shout out to Mobalytics for compiling all the reveals in image format, and a shout out to Mr. Fruit and 2610 for their original reveal videos, which will be linked in the description. Before I get fully into card evaluation, I do want to give a quick preface that these are going to be first impressions. We don't have anywhere near enough information to really evaluate these. First of all, the Bazaar is a crazy context-sensitive game where what's right and wrong varies depending on circumstance from run to run and is never consistently true. If someone tells you they have universally applicable advice, they're giving you bad advice in this game. Because of how context-sensitive the Bazaar is, it's really hard to give concrete opinions on cards we've never seen before. There are just too many different circumstances you might see them in where they might be both good or bad. On top of that, the Bazaar is constantly being rebalanced, so we don't know if the support structures of these cards are going to be changed. We don't even know if they'll be reworked before they go live, which has happened before. Not just number changes, but whole card reworks. So for a lot of different, very valid reasons, I'm going to do my best to analyze these cards, but I'm going to be way off base and it's completely unavoidable. Today we're here for hype more than game optimization. Let's get into it with the Primal core, which is, as you might imagine, a new core for Dooley. And that does have some ramifications, making cores less consistent in general. I don't think that's really worth dwelling on though. Unlike all the other cores, it is not a tech. It is a weapon dinosaur core relic. Like all cores, the Primal core is 6 seconds duration. It deals 50 damage, which is standard weapon core damage. And it also buffs the damage of all dinosaur and relic weapons by 20 each time it goes off. And you'll note that unlike a weaponized core, this is omnidirectional. It doesn't care about left and right. And that's going to hold true on the bottom part where you charge the core as well. When you use another dinosaur or relic, charge this 1 second. And adjacent items are considered relics. So this is looking to me like a much better version of a weaponized core that is restricted in terms of what builds can run it. I don't think that's a bad place at all for a core to live. I think it's a pretty interesting design, and it really depends on the quality of the dinosaur archetype as to how good this is going to be. Frankly, one thing I noticed when looking at this set is there actually are not that many dinosaurs in it, and that might end up making the Primal core a little bit less good than it otherwise would be. And maybe the way Primal core ends up getting played most of the time is if you see certain early cards, then you'll pick them up and try to pivot into a Primal core when you get your core on day 3. So let's get into what those early cards are, in particular the Dinosawer, which I think is probably a card where if I see this, I will pick it up with the intent of going into Primal core when I get my core selection. He's got some big Chris Army Knife vibes. He's a small starting bronze weapon, small weapon friend dinosaur tool, so just more tags straight up. And he has 5 speed to deal 10 damage, which is pretty fast. Even faster though, this item's cooldown is reduced by 50% if you have 4+ other items that are dinosaurs, tools, or relics. Meaning, if you have the Primal core, Dinosaur is enabled, right? Just the 2 adjacent items, the core and Dinosaur, is enough. And this guy is stupidly fast. Wherever you put him, he's going to be charging the core 1 second every 2.5, getting buffed by the core pretty quickly considering how much he's going to be accelerating the core himself. I think when I play Dooley next month, if I see this card in the first 2 days, I'm going to pick it up trying to play Primal core, because this feels like the linchpin to make the build work, the fast dinosaur you need to accelerate everything else. Also, quick question. I understand the pun, dinosaur. How am I supposed to be pronouncing that? Because I'm going to call him Dinosaur every time, because I'm not really sure if that's doing it right. Maybe when it comes out of my mouth, it just sounds like I'm saying dinosaur, right? Dinosaur, dinosaur. I'm sure you can hear the difference, but it's one of those names where I can't quite figure out how it's meant to be said. There are also some other crazy early game dinosaurs that might impact how you're playing your game. Anky is a silver large. It is a large friend dinosaur weapon. It's a 6 second to deal 50 damage, and its passive effects are absolutely crazy. Enemy weapons have minus 25 damage, so just immediately. That is more than removing gold straight from your opponent's board, right? This says it's so much better than Bunker at countering weapons, and Bunker's already good at it, but this basically just says your opponent lost their build if they're playing weapons. It is incredibly strong. But then on top of that, it says when one of your dinosaurs deals damage, gain that much shield, and the Primal core is buffing the damage of all your dinosaurs very rapidly. This feels like an incredible item. You usually won't be able to see this before you pick your core though, right? Because usually you don't see any specific silver item on day 2. The odds of finding silver items on day 2 are much lower than 3 and 4 and so forth. So I'm not sure this is going to convince you to pick a Primal core very often, but it is going to be an insane mid-game item on pretty much any build, regardless of whether or not you're playing dinosaurs. It's just, do you have room for the guy? We also have one more dinosaur without any specific synergies, the Trollasaur. It is a medium dragon dinosaur friend, 7 second cast time. It deals 10 damage and burns equal to 10% of its damage. So it more or less has a baseline fiery enchant. However, it also has two very good lines of text. The first time you fall below half health, destroy a small item, and when you destroy an item during combat, this permanently gains 10 damage. I don't know if you're going to be able to scale this up reliably enough for this to one-shot your opponents, maybe you do, but certainly in the mid-game when this is disrupting your opponent's builds as you hit half health and the game actually goes on a little while after half health in the mid-game most of the time, and it has passive scaling that you could theoretically get rolling ahead of curve sometimes. I think this is going to be more of a menace in the mid-game than a late-game build-around. Maybe I'm underestimating it, but this is an interesting card that will probably have a spot anytime you're picking Primal Core, just because it's a dinosaur, if nothing else. And now for my favorite card of the set, it's Rex Specs. I'm a sucker for these large gold charge-based items. I love Slumbering Primordial, I loved Dualtron. Last expansion kind of left me out to dry in that regard, but we're back to printing them. Rex Specs is a large dinosaur friend weapon, 15-second cast time, starting gold tier by the way. He deals 100 damage. If your enemy has more items than you, destroy one of their items. And considering he's large and you're already guaranteed at least running the medium core, right, it's not too hard to create this situation from there with 2 items taking up 5 spots. Additionally though, because 15 seconds is an eternity, when you use another dinosaur, charge this 2 seconds. Again, like I was saying earlier, I probably just pick up Dinosaur in the early game if I see him to maybe enable Primal Core and then go into stuff like Rex Specs, because having a 2.5 speed dinosaur charging your dinosaur core seems like a really important part of making this combo works, and it feels kind of specific. Because remember, Primal Core turns your adjacent items into relics, not dinosaurs. Of course, only 100 damage isn't that much, so whenever you use another friend, this gains 50 damage as well. And all dinosaurs are friends, although if you make something into a dinosaur, it might not be a friend. And the way you would do that is the next item, Dino Disguise. Before I move on to that though, I do want to say, I think this is going to be a mid-game menace sort of item. I need to know what its tier looks like, right? Does it just double it to 200? Does it double the scaling? Does it more than double? Does it double the charge? That would be a weird one, but possible. Until I know how this looks at Diamond, I won't really know if this is viable super late game, but this definitely feels very strong. The Primal Core build looks like the sort of thing that's going to be a powerhouse in the mid game, and whether or not it can like convert the distance is going to be very important, because of all the cores, if dinosaurs aren't strong in the late game, Primal Core is the worst late game core because it's the one that's not attacked, the one with the least synergy when you pivot out of the core entirely. And you've been building a build of dinosaurs that wouldn't pivot well, right? It sort of feels to me like, looking at Rex Specs, the build needs to have some way to go to 10 wins, and I don't really see it from the reveals. Now that said, I'm not saying that dinosaurs look bad and like they can't go 10 wins. I just have concerns that I'll probably figure out the solutions to during gameplay. It's not obviously like a broken you go 10 wins with Rex Specs sort of thing. Anyways, moving right along, we have the Dino Disguise. It's a medium dinosaur relic and apparel, 8-second cooldown, shield 10. We're awful so far, but adjacent items are dinosaurs. This has +1 multicast for each other relic or dinosaur you have. Because both the core and Rex Specs are charged off dinosaur activations, this does some really powerful stuff, converting other fast items into dinosaurs and then giving you multicast based on the number of dinosaurs you have on a dinosaur itself to speed up those charges. And if Bad Blocker from the last season taught me anything, it's that 8-second multicast a million is more than good enough to enable some broken combo and win the game right after it goes off. So I think Dino Disguise will often be a core part of a lot of different Primal Core builds. Looking forward to seeing exactly how this synergy piece lines up. And unfortunately, even though we've only covered 6 cards so far, I think I'm kind of done talking about the dinosaur synergies. The rest of this is sort of other stuff in my opinion. And that's why I'm a little bit scared about not having a high enough dinosaur density to really make the Primal Core work. Moving on to the Dino Saddle, which sounds like it would be all about dinosaurs. It's a medium property relic. It's a 6-second cast for shield 30. Your vehicles have +1 multicast. And if you have a dinosaur, this is a vehicle. But that doesn't really matter, right? It's just multicasting a bad item. It charges the core a little. Like, I can imagine a situation where this is good on my board, where I want to run this just because it makes the core faster. But it needs to be multicasting a vehicle specifically for it to be good. And none of the things we've shown so far are vehicles. I mean, sure, you could probably ride them if you tried hard enough, but they aren't vehicles by base. So I think even though dinosaurs can use the combo about to talk about, it's not really a dinosaur specific thing and it takes up a lot of space. I'm not sure which builds even can do this really, but you can give up 3 item slots for thrusters and a Dino Saddle. To give an item -5 to 15% cooldown reduction, make it a vehicle, and then give it multicast, right? It's also worth asking, what does this do when it ranks up to Diamond? If it gains shield 60, absolute trash item. If it gains multicast 2, this is an absolute menace and maybe it does something crazy. Again, we don't know how these things are going to function, when you level them up. I assume it does not give multicast too. It might though. But as it stands, I view this as a way to spend 3 item slots multicasting an item that should never have been multicasted. Where that will be used, I don't know, and it's too much to try to imagine the situation, because 3 item slots is a huge opportunity cost. I want to imagine you can do broken things with this, but I'm just not able to immediately visualize it. Moving on to the Temporal Navigator, a medium tech vehicle, 6-second speed, haste adjacent items for 1 second, and if this is your only tech item, its cooldown is reduced by 50%. Again, all other cores are tech items, so you're probably never using this with any other core. And it's also an economy item. At the start of each day, get a relic from any hero. And I'm not really sure the relic part's going to matter too much, because looking at it, the dinosaur stuff doesn't really care about relics that badly, right? Like, sure, they do charge Primal Core, but Primal Core is being charged to buff your dinosaurs. This feels like a kind of jank economy, 3-second rocket boots, essentially, with a tier offset to justify it. I don't know. I don't look at this and see something crazy. Just like mechanically, I feel like this is kind of weak. And maybe it's meant to be, right? The same as fishing rod is mechanically kind of weak, because this is just get a relic from any hero economy item, and it's not really meant to be played is how I look at it. If it is meant to be played, I don't have a positive opinion on it, but I think it's mostly for this bottom line. It's just that I don't really know why, like, you can't do get a dinosaur from any hero, right? It's only Dooley. There's not that many of them. Notably, it doesn't say get a small relic. Oh, this is actually really interesting. I assume that's not a typo. I assume this actually gets any size relic. In which case, you could have Dooley's like ripping Freeze Quest out of Mac. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Okay, my opinion on this changed completely. I was like, you know, it's one of the many economy items you can buy where if you hold it in your stash for 2 days, it's paying for itself when you sell it. So it's probably going to be break-even positive economy and worth buying, especially with the high roll potential. Now that I realize this does not say small relic, this is absolutely crazy. I'm really interested in playing with this now. It's not going to matter the way I want it to most of the time, right? You need to get this early, then get the quest item, then trigger the quest. I'm sure there are non-quest relics to be hype about. From any hero is the phrasing used on the vendors that can sell wand and cryo sleeve as well. This might mean get any relic and just be deceptively phrased. We can't know that yet. If it's get any relic, the Necronomicon's a relic. This could give you 50 gold or just a whole build. I'm very hype about this last line now that I realize it's not written the way you would expect it to be. The top of the item, like, yeah, maybe rocket boots are good enough to play for the first couple of days. It happens sometimes. But I'm very hyped about the bottom half. I'm looking forward to the weird stuff that enables. Moving on to Crude tools, I cannot evaluate this item. It is a small tool relic. It is a 6-second use to charge 1 tech item 1 second. And if you have exactly 1 tech item, its cooldown is reduced by 1 second. So there are 3 different durations on this that can increase with tier, right? It might get faster from 6 down to 3. It might charge more from 1 up to 4. Or, God forbid, it might reduce the cooldown by 1 up to 4. Or by fractional amounts up to 2.5, who knows? It's also possible that they could have multiple numbers be affected simultaneously. I can't even hazard a guess. I'm just going to say that generally speaking, items like this are powerful. Permanently reducing the cooldown of a tech item is powerful. I don't know what you do when you play Crude tools the core with no tech items, but making the core a 3-second cooldown item guaranteed over the course of a run, I mean, yeah, right? Like, I can imagine a world where I pick up Dinosawer because I'm like, hell yeah, Primal Core on day 3. And then down the line, I see Crude tools. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have that many techs. All my friends aren't techs. I'm playing the core. I can just throw Crude tools in my build as well. It's a pretty cheap thing to pick up small bronze items. And if I miss Primal Core, still got really good odds at the core and playing something else, right? I'm not sure what this is for, and I can't know how good it will be without seeing its upgrades or its enchants. I am certain that it's a good card. Just how good and how widely usable will depend on how these numbers change with tier, and potentially what the enchants do. And lastly, we have the Flintstones. It is a small tool relic, a 5-second cooldown. It is burn 3 for each relic or tool you have. This item's cooldown is increased by 1 second for each tech item you have. Now, frankly, I actually think this card is a menace in the early game. There are not that many relics or tools available to a Dooley, but if you have Primal Core on day 3, it is conceivable that you have a Flintstones doing burn 12 every 5 as a small bronze item, right? You have this relic, the Primal Core itself is a relic, the adjacent items are relics. It's absolutely conceivable that you run this as like just a very powerful burn item in the mid game. And depending on what you rip out of a Temporal Navigator, maybe it's a lot more than just a mid game tool. Also, how does this scale? Does it go 3, 4, 5, 6? Does it go 3, 6, 9, 12? Does something else happen, right? This is a card that I will absolutely see on my board, on my opponent's boards. I don't know how often it will make to late game until we see the way it upgrades, but this is the sort of thing that will have a lot of relevance in the mid game. And that is the last item for the set. As I was saying, there's not actually that many new dinosaurs. You have the core itself, you have Dinosawer, which I think is probably the most important dinosaur to justify picking a Primal core. Although I might, for the first couple days, YOLO pick Primal core and just hope I'll find Dinosaur later. He has a small bronze, it's not hard to find those. We have Tanky Anky for an insane mid-game counter to weapons and just a solid enough entire defensive package for any dinosaur build. We have Dinosawer, which is item destruction package with fiery as a baseline. So even though the numbers don't look good to me, those are some mechanically incredible things, and maybe that's more than good enough. Maybe I'm horribly underestimating this guy. Rex Specs is exactly the kind of card that I want to build around when I see. And my main concern is with only 4 non-core dinosaurs here, like Dino Disguise is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting to fill out the build. There's not that many hits to find the dinosaurs, but I think there's probably enough, at least for right now. It creates a kind of awkward situation where like Dooley will probably need another dinosaur expansion down the line to avoid having all of these cards suck, but that's something for the devs to figure out much later. There's also a couple of like off-brand things, the crazy Dino Saddle Thrusters combo that doesn't really have anything to do with dinosaurs, but 3 slots to give an item cooldown reduction in multicast is the sort of thing where, yeah, it might take up 30% of your board, but that's an absolutely massive buff to an item. Maybe it's worth it, right? Temporal Navigator is obviously fantastic as an economy item because it's not forcing small items, so it's going to pay for itself much faster. And when we talk about max set, it might do some really crazy things, especially for a freeze duty that gets high rolled hard enough. Crude duels, I think, is going to be great. I just don't know how great. And Flintstones is going to be a mid-game menace up there with Matchbox, mark my words. If in the next month you don't at least once get rolled by someone with Flintstones and a Dinosaur, I will be shocked. Anyways, I'm really hyped about the new Dooley set. I'm looking forward to playing this. It seems very different from old Dooley and very exciting to me. Maybe I'm just a sucker for new cores. Maybe I'm a sucker for large charge items. I don't know. I really like the way these items feel, and I'm looking forward to playing with them. And I hope you enjoyed hearing my first impressions on them. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, I always forget to do call to actions in these sorts of videos, but if you could sub and like, that stuff really does help the channel grow, and I really do appreciate it.